Hey everybody, welcome to the program. Welcome to the show. I'm Andy Hunter. This is ADRIQOS. Are you like me? You just love to sleep in sub-zero temperatures. I mean, I've got the central air right there behind me, right? I got the unit there. It cools down the house. I mean, we have a setting, we put it to whatever it is, but it's just not enough, especially at night in the bedroom. So I like to put an extra unit, one of these window-mounted air conditioners on my windowsill, or whatever you call it, window pane, I don't know what, on the window. And the room becomes really, really cold, and we sleep with the blankets. I just love that. Are you like me? Is anybody out there like me in this sense, or am I just the only freak? I'm about to spark up a nice Monte Cristo cigarello or mini cigar. We're going to talk a little bit about the big three. What is your big three? What is my big three? When it comes to the big three, you don't have to like, your big three. In my big three, I don't like one particular brand, but I consider it to be the big three. Back in the heyday of the automotive industry, we had the big three. We had Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford. And they competed against the Japanese, the European models, and everything else in between. Today, the big three are just the three. Chrysler is a shadow of its own self. Ford is doing all right. They're the only big American car company that didn't actually opt out for a handout. And General Motors is starting to come back. But in order for us to trust a General Motors product, a lot of time has to go by. Me personally, the last GM product I had was a Impala, and let me tell you, I don't think I want to go back to those days. So my big three in terms of horology happens to be number 1 Rolex, number 2 Omega, number 3 Breitling, and I'm not a big Breitling guy. It's just that, it's not that I don't like the brand. I love the brand's history, and I love where they've come from. I just don't like, the big, over-the-top blingy dials, although they are coming out with some pretty good in-house movements now, and they're trying to improve their image, their quality control, and overall sex appeal to the more modest, modern man. Now, when I say my big three, and you're saying, wait a minute, Hunter, there are better brands out there. Patek Philippe is one. Jaeger-LeCoultre is another. Vacheron Constantin is one more. Zenith, again, an excellent brand. Hublot, Audemars Piguet, great brands. But everybody has to have a big three, and my big three are Rolex, Omega, and Breitling. Time to spark up the Monte Cristo. And wouldn't you know it, I've run out of fuel. And, I'm fully aware that the best way to light a cigar is by using a good, wood match. But, I don't smoke. And one of my favorite things in the world is a Zippo lighter. And the only time I get to use a Zippo lighter is when I light a cigar. So, forgive my indulgence if I light a cigar with a Zippo lighter. I just find that the Zippo lighter is really a manly lighter. And, I always carry it wherever I go. And whenever I have the opportunity to light up a cigar, Zippo lighter it is. So I'm going to go inside and fill up on the fuel and be right back. For those of you who make videos out there, has it ever happened that you basically wasted about 5 minutes of your life rambling on, ad lib, and then come to realize the camera was off or wasn't recording? Does that ever happen to you? No? Me neither. Well, basically that's what happened to me, and just want to talk to you a little bit about why I think my big three are my big three, because they are attainable, they are high quality watches. Even though I'm not a big Breitling fan, the name comes to mind immediately. It's just, it's there. When I'm thinking about a good quality timepiece, I don't, I know you can buy yourself a real fine quality timepiece for 15, 50, 70, $100,000 from Patek Philippe, and from a company like Vacheron Constantin and Jaeger-LeCoultre. But those aren't the big three that come to mind, because you want a watch that is, I mean, as far as a big three, okay, not a watch, but a brand. You want a brand that's going to command respect immediately, and usually from people who have no idea what a Submariner is. If you ask somebody, you ever hear of a Datejust? They'll be like, what's a Datejust? Ever hear of a Rolex? Yeah, best watches in the world. See, that is why it's in my big three. Same thing with Omega. They're right behind. They're not as close. I don't think they're ever going to supplant Rolex as the #1 brand that comes to mind. That name recognition that Rolex has, sometimes marketing departments succeed in spite of their work ethic, in spite of what they try to do, and then they sit back and just take in all the accolades. And this is what's happened to Rolex. A Rolex, for some reason, and it has nothing to do with the fact that they make good watches. They make okay watches. They really do. Their finishing is fine, but when you compare, let's just say Grand Seiko, which, like, this is going to pain me. I mean, it's going to hurt me right now, right? I'd rather get, run over by a herd of buffalo than actually say this, so you can actually understand the pain that I'm in right now. When you take a Grand Seiko, a new Grand Seiko, and you put it next to a Rolex Submariner. Let's take a Grand Seiko Diver and a Rolex Submariner, and put a blindfold on. All right, exercise. You take a Grand Seiko Diver, and you take a no-date Submariner. No date because you don't want to feel that little Cyclops, and automatically you'll think Rolex, right? Because you're not going to think Steinhardt, God forbid. And you put a blindfold on, and you start feeling the watches around, turning the bezel, feeling everything, and you will come to realize that perhaps the Grand Seiko, and I'd rather drink this fluid right now, and maybe I should before I just hurt myself. Not by drinking this, but by actually uttering these words. You might find that the Seiko feels a little bit better. It feels a little bit more quality. And then you take off the blindfold and you're like, really? You gotta be fucking kidding me. It's a fucking Seiko, for fuck's sakes. But without the blinders on, without the blindfold on, it's what happens. This is why Rolex will always be Rolex. It's in the mind. It's in the mind. It's like if you're a heterosexual, you see a beautiful woman walking down the street, she's strutting her stuff, and you're like, yeah. And if you're a homosexual and you see Andy Hunter walking down the street, and you're like, oh yeah, and I'm like, down boy, easy boy. I love you, I respect you, but I will not indulge you. Hold on. So what is your big three? Think about this for a nanosecond. I don't want you to think about it at all. Here's an exercise you should do. Take a piece of paper and pen and write down your big three in order without actually thinking about it. You don't know what you're going to write down. You're thinking about it, but don't do it while you're thinking about it. Then you'll find that you might put a brand down there that you might say, really? Did I just write this down? And of course, if you're going to lie to yourself, you lie to yourself. If you don't, well, you don't. It's the way things are. I don't lie to myself. I'd rather drink this than admit that the fact that maybe the Grand Seiko has a pretty good, well, maybe a little bit better finishing. Fuck. Can I talk about something else? Fuck. What is your big three? Do the exercise and let me know. I'm Andy Hunter. This is ADRIQOS.